Racist cops slap the wrong judge. 4 minutes later, their empire begins to crumble. Chicago sweltered. The air hung thick and heavy, baking the asphalt until it rippled, distorting the skyline into a blurry mirage. Even the lake offered no escape, its surface a slick, motionless mirror reflecting the oppressive sun. Inside his cruiser, Kevin O'Malley felt his starched uniform become a second skin, damp patches blossoming like dark flowers beneath his arms. He punched the AC, chasing a whisper of coolness that only succeeded in stirring the stagnant air. He despised days like this. The kind where nerves frayed, arguments ignited, and the city pulsed with barely contained tension. A day where the boundary between order and mayhem blurred, and he, Kevin O'Malley, imagined himself the sole bulwark against the tide. Or so he liked to believe. A black Mercedes, sleek and opulent, purred down Michigan Avenue, a monument to affluence he could only dream of. And the driver, she mirrored the vehicle's elegance. Poised, self-assured, black. A knot twisted in O'Malley's gut. Her very bearing, that quiet command she exuded, grated on him. He couldn't articulate it, even to himself, but a familiar, bitter feeling churned within. He flipped on the lights. The Mercedes smoothly decelerated, signaled flawlessly, and hugged the curb. O'Malley observed, a cynical half-smile tugging at his lips. Always the model citizen when the sirens wailed. Approaching the car, his hand instinctively hovered near his sidearm. License and registration. His voice was clipped, offering no warmth. The driver, a woman graced with keen intelligence and a face that could launch armadas, met his gaze directly. No twitch of fear, no nervous tremor. Just the composed appraisal that raised goosebumps on O'Malley's arms. "Good afternoon, officer," she responded, her tone smooth and even. "May I inquire as to the reason for this stop?" O'Malley straightened, puffing out his chest. "You were exceeding the speed limit, ma'am. 10 miles over." An outright fabrication. He'd been several blocks distant when he decided to pull her over. An eyebrow arched, a subtle gesture laced with skepticism. "I assure you, officer, I maintained the posted speed." He leaned in close, invading her personal space. The delicate, costly perfume drifting from the car further inflamed his irritation. "Are you accusing me of lying, ma'am?" "I am merely stating a fact," she countered, her eyes unwavering. With deliberate grace, she reached into her handbag. "My license and registration are right here." O'Malley snatched the documents, his fingers grazing hers. A small electric shock, an unexpected awareness, coursed through him. He scanned the license. Anna Washington. He ran the name through his mental database, his cop's senses tingling. Nothing flagged. Clean. He flipped to the registration, noting the Hyde Park address, a prestigious locale. Yet still, something about her unruffled demeanor, the extravagant car, and her lack of agitation at his thinly veiled intimidation fueled his obstinacy. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am," he barked, his voice gaining volume. The heat, the suffocating humidity, the simmering resentment, all converged into a fiery peak. He needed to reassert dominance, to remind both himself and her, who held the upper hand. Judge Anna Washington held his stare, her expression carefully neutral. A solitary muscle pulsed in her jaw, the only hint of the inner storm brewing within. With excruciating slowness, she killed the ignition and opened the door. 4 minutes. License and registration. O'Malley's voice dripped with a saccharine politeness that didn't reach his eyes. Judge Washington retrieved the documents from her glove compartment, the leather smooth and cool beneath her fingertips. She handed them over, her gaze steady, unwavering. He took them, the fluorescent light glinting off his name tag as he leaned back. "Anna Washington," he read, drawing out the syllables as if tasting something unpleasant. "And where are you headed this fine evening, Miss Washington?" "Home, officer." Her tone was even, devoid of emotion. O'Malley smirked, the expression tightening the lines around his mouth. "Home from where? Some fancy fundraiser downtown? Bet you were all patting yourselves on the back, huh? Solving all the world's problems over champagne and canapes." Judge Washington didn't respond. She simply looked at him, a silent question in her eyes. He shuffled the papers, the crisp sound amplified in the quiet night. You know, Miss Washington, some folks might think it's a little unusual for someone like you to be driving through this neighborhood at this hour. He let the unspoken words hang in the air, thick and heavy with implication. Especially someone driving a car like this. He rapped his knuckles on the hood of her Lexus. Are you detaining me, officer? Judge Washington asked, her voice calm but firm. O'Malley's smile vanished. I'm conducting a routine traffic stop. Don't get cute with me. He paused, then added, his voice laced with venom. Just answer the damn question, why don't you? Or is answering to a police officer beneath you? I've provided my license and registration. I have not violated any traffic laws. If I am not being detained, I would like to be on my way. She held his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. The air crackled with tension. O'Malley's face flushed crimson. You think you're so smart, don't you? Coming in here, stirring things up, thinking you're better than everyone else. He leaned closer, invading her personal space. You people, you all think you're above the law. A string of racial slurs followed, a torrent of hate spewing from his lips. Judge Washington's expression hardened. I know my rights, officer. And I will not tolerate this harassment. That was it. Something snapped in O'Malley. The frustration, the resentment, the simmering anger, it all coalesced into a single, blinding rage. He swung his hand, hard and fast. The slap echoed in the stillness of the night. Judge Washington's head snapped to the side. A red mark bloomed instantly on her cheek. The world seemed to hold its breath. O'Malley stared at his hand as if he couldn't believe what he'd done. A flicker of fear, quickly masked, crossed his features. Judge Washington slowly turned back to face him, her eyes blazing with fury. She touched her cheek, her fingers coming away slightly pink. The shock was gone, replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. I am Judge Anna Washington, she said, her voice low and dangerous. And you, officer, are in a world of trouble. Echoes in the city. The news unfurled like a spilled secret, staining every corner of the community. Gossip buzzed in hair salons, pronouncements rang from porches, and a flurry of text lit up phone screens. Anna Washington's name, now synonymous with outrage, dominated every conversation. A shaky, distorted video had gone viral, its images searing themselves into the community's shared memory. That officer's cruel grip, the glint of metal reflecting the sun, the raw anguish on Anna's face, the injustice was palpable. Sunday morning at Greater Hope Baptist Church was different. The atmosphere, often buzzing with joyful anticipation, instead hung thick and heavy with simmering anger. Reverend Davis, whose voice typically resonated with comfort and assurance, stood before his flock, his countenance a mask of somber gravity. Light from the stained glass windows painted his brow in hues of red, blue, and gold, accentuating the deep furrows etched there. Brothers and sisters, he began, his voice a deep rumble. We gather not only to offer praise, but to demand redress. We have witnessed a wrong, a flagrant abuse of power aimed at one of our own, a cornerstone of this community. He paused, allowing his words to resonate. Judge Anna Washington wasn't merely behind the wheel of her car. She carried the burden of our aspirations, the future of our children, the heritage of our ancestors. A wave of agreement rippled through the congregation. Heads bobbed, fists tightened. He pushed forward, his voice gaining momentum, building towards a fervent crescendo. They believe they can silence us with badges and brutality. They presume they can humiliate us into submission. But I say to you, no, we refuse to be silenced. We will not be cowed. We will stand united until justice prevails. He called for a peaceful demonstration outside the 22nd District Precinct. He stressed the power of visibility, the need to amplify their voices, to insist on accountability. He implored them to bring their signs, their spirituals, their unwavering commitment to fairness. The air in the church crackled with renewed energy. Grief morphed into steely resolve. Fear dissolved into bold defiance. By noon, the sidewalk in front of the precinct throbbed with a surging mass of humanity. Hand-painted placards waved like battle flags. Justice for Judge Washington, end police brutality, Black Lives Matter. The atmosphere vibrated with chants. Drums pounded out a defiant rhythm, and the fragrant smoke of burning sage swirled through the throng. Reverend Davis, a guiding light, stood at the vanguard, leading the charge. Anna Washington's name reverberated throughout the city, no longer a hushed whisper, but a resounding battle cry. The system, so long arrogant and immutable, began to experience the tremors of discontent, hairline fractures spreading within its facade. Those 4 minutes of brutality had sparked a conflagration, and now the flames of outrage were rapidly consuming the landscape. Internal affairs. The call came directly from the state's attorney, bypassing channels like a rogue wave over a seawall. No pleasantries, just a clipped directive. Internal affairs. Now. And keep it quiet. Detectives Reynolds and Diaz exchanged glances that spoke volumes. A judge getting slapped? That wasn't just bad. It was a 5-alarm fire in the middle of the mayor's re-election campaign. Reynolds, a woman whose face had seen enough grime to etch permanent lines of weariness, pulled up O'Malley's file. Thick. Too thick. Diaz whistled softly as he scanned the digital records, the blue light reflecting in his usually jovial eyes. Looks like our boy's been busy. Busy is an understatement, Reynolds muttered, flipping through hard copies. Complaints. Lots of complaints. Excessive force, verbal abuse, racial profiling. The same names kept cropping up: West Side, mostly Black and Hispanic communities. Each complaint meticulously documented, each one dismissed after a cursory investigation. The usual song and dance. Officer acted within protocol, unsubstantiated claims, lack of evidence. Diaz leaned back, the swivel chair groaning under his weight. Protocol my ass. This reeks of a pattern. The deeper they dug, the more the stench intensified. Internal affairs investigations, all closed without disciplinary action. Letters of reprimand that seemed more like suggestions than actual punishments. O'Malley's file was a meticulously crafted tapestry of near misses, a testament to the unspoken rules of the department. A silent endorsement of behavior that shouldn't have been tolerated, certainly not by those sworn to protect. One particular incident stood out. A young Black man, arrested for a minor traffic violation, claimed O'Malley had called him a racial slur and slammed his head against the squad car. The case was closed after O'Malley claimed the man resisted arrest. Bodycam footage? Conveniently. Malfunctioning. Witnesses? None willing to come forward. It's always the same damn story, Diaz said, his voice laced with a weariness that mirrored Reynolds. Nobody sees anything, nobody hears anything. And the guy gets away with it. Reynolds tapped her pen against the file. This isn't just about O'Malley. This is about the system that allowed him to do this. The system that protected him. The weight of it, the sheer scale of the rot, settled heavy in the room. They were tasked with investigating one cop, but they were staring into the abyss of a department riddled with complicity, a city teetering on the edge of unrest. The state's attorney wanted it quiet, contained. But Reynolds knew, with a sinking feeling in her gut, that this was a Pandora's box they had just opened. And once that lid was off, there was no telling what would crawl out. Damage control. The bank of microphones loomed, a metallic forest reflecting the harsh glare of the television lights. Robert Miller, superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, adjusted his tie, the silk cool against his suddenly clammy skin. He plastered on his most sincere expression, the one that had charmed countless community leaders and deflected accusations of systemic racism for years. The actions of Officer Kevin O'Malley are unacceptable and do not reflect the values and training of the Chicago Police Department, he stated, his voice resonating with practiced conviction. Each word felt like a carefully placed brick in the wall he was building against the coming storm. He announced an immediate internal investigation and O'Malley's suspension without pay. The questions came like a barrage: calls for his resignation, demands for body cam footage release, accusations of a cover-up already swirling. Miller parried them with practiced ease, offering condolences, promising transparency, vowing swift justice. The performance was Oscar-worthy, he thought grimly, but the curtain wouldn't stay down for long. Back in his oak-paneled office, the scent of expensive leather and old money did little to soothe his frayed nerves. His chief of staff, a woman named Sarah Chin, stood before him, her face tight with concern. "The mayor's office is on line 3, Superintendent. They're not happy." Miller sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Connect them." The mayor's voice, amplified and irritable, filled the room. There was talk of public trust, of jeopardized funding, of political careers hanging in the balance. Miller endured the tirade, promising to contain the situation, to deliver a scapegoat, to make it all go away. After the call, Chun laid out the situation. The judge's lawyers were preparing a lawsuit. Community activists were planning a protest outside police headquarters. News outlets were digging into O'Malley's past, unearthing a litany of minor infractions and complaints. "It's a feeding frenzy, Superintendent," Chun said, her voice low. Miller swiveled in his chair, gazing out at the Chicago skyline. "We need to control the narrative. Feed them O'Malley. Make him the rogue cop, the bad apple. Emphasize his disciplinary record. Distance the department from his actions." Now. Later that evening, O'Malley sat alone in a dimly lit bar, the television screen flashing images of Miller's press conference. Each carefully chosen word felt like a personal betrayal. He nursed the whiskey, the amber liquid reflecting the flickering neon sign outside. He was a pariah. The department had thrown him to the wolves. He felt a burning resentment, a simmering rage that threatened to boil over. He knew he'd made a mistake, a terrible one. But he wasn't the only one responsible for what had happened. And he wouldn't be the only one to pay the price. Unwavering. The perfume of lilies, meant to soothe, felt cloying. Judge Thompson, a man whose face resembled a well-worn leather chair, shifted in her office, radiating discomfort. "Eleanor, darling," he began, his voice a low rumble. "We all admire your dedication. But this Anna Washington case..." He trailed off, offering a weak smile. "Perhaps a quiet settlement? Think of the city, the unrest. And frankly, Eleanor, think of yourself." Eleanor Washington met his gaze, unwavering. The floral scent intensified, making her head throb. The city, the unrest, herself. All code for the same thing, maintain the status quo. "The city deserves justice, Judge Thompson. Not another bandage on a gaping wound." He sighed, the sound like air escaping a punctured tire. "Justice can be messy, Eleanor. And expensive. A settlement would be cleaner. Clean, like scrubbing away the blood Anna Washington left on the sidewalk." Eleanor's hands tightened into fists beneath her desk. "I'm not in the business of cleaning up messes, Judge Thompson. I'm in the business of justice." He patted her hand awkwardly. "Just consider it, dear. These things, they can escalate. Quickly." Then he was gone, leaving behind the lingering scent of lilies and a chilling sense of isolation. Later, long after the office lights were dimmed, Eleanor sat staring at the framed photograph on her desk, her daughter, Maya, grinning, all bright eyes and boundless energy. Maya, who had once asked, wide-eyed, "Mommy, do you catch the bad guys?" Eleanor had answered, "I try, baby. I try." The irony felt like a physical blow. She hadn't caught the bad guy. The bad guy, Officer Kincaid, had caught her, or rather, had caught Anna, an extension of herself, a mirror reflecting the systemic injustices she had sworn to fight. Sleep evaded her. Every flicker of the streetlights outside her window seemed to mock her indecision, or what others perceived as indecision. The pressure was immense. Phone calls from concerned colleagues, veiled threats disguised as friendly advice, the constant, gnawing anxiety for her family's safety. Even her usually supportive mother had urged caution, a plea disguised as wisdom. But Anna Washington's bruised face swam before her eyes. The young woman's fear, her confusion, her utter devastation, Eleanor had witnessed it all in excruciating detail. And she had seen something else, too, a spark of defiance, a refusal to be silenced. Eleanor rose, her movements deliberate. She walked to the window and looked out at the sleeping city. The weight of expectation, the fear, the pressure, they were all still there, but they no longer paralyzed her. They fueled her. She would pursue this case. Publicly. Loudly. Unwaveringly. For Anna, for Maya, for every black woman who had ever felt the sting of injustice, she would not back down. The lilies could rot. The city could burn. She would stand her ground. Trial by media. The courtroom doors burst open, unleashing a supernova of camera flashes. Kevin O'Malley flinched, his face haggard and etched with fatigue. Hounded by the press, he felt exposed, a hunted creature stalked by a relentless pack. The incessant murmur of accusation, carried on microphone winds across the city, stung like nettles. O'Malley, bigotry, brutal force. Each syllable was a shard of glass, twisting deeper. His expensive lawyer, Harrison, a man polished to a fault, guided him through the mob, dispensing reassurances that rang false even to himself. Inside, the courtroom's atmosphere was thick enough to choke on. Every seat was occupied, the air vibrating with tense expectation. Anna Washington, surrounded by her family, sat ramrod straight, a beacon of unwavering composure in the escalating storm. He avoided her gaze. A surprising wave of shame prickled his skin. The initial testimony came from a young black woman, her voice ringing with conviction as she recounted the events captured on her phone. Her account painted a damning portrait: O'Malley's escalating hostility, the careless epithet that had escaped his lips, the unjustified force he'd employed against Judge Washington. Harrison attempted to undermine her credibility, to question her motives, but she remained steadfast, her eyes radiating quiet fortitude. Next on the stand was Officer Reynolds, O'Malley's partner from that fateful day. Reynolds' words were deliberate, carefully chosen. He conceded that O'Malley had exhibited pre-incident restlessness, acknowledging the prejudicial comment leveled at the neighborhood. While not a direct denunciation, it resonated like a death knell. A glacial dread spread through O'Malley. He was being sacrificed. Beyond the building's walls, Reverend Davis's resonant voice reverberated. Peering through the courtroom window, O'Malley glimpsed the demonstrators, a vibrant tapestry of faces brandishing signs. Justice for Judge Washington, end police violence. Davis stood on a makeshift platform, arms uplifted, delivering a passionate sermon. They demand our silence, he thundered, his voice amplified across the city. They implore us to believe this is a solitary rotten seed. But we understand the bitter truth. The system itself is corrupted. The crowd erupted in approval, a tidal surge of righteous indignation sweeping through the city. Davis's gatherings swelled daily, attracting a diverse coalition of individuals. His advocacy extended beyond Judge Washington, mobilizing the entire community, offering a conduit for years of suppressed frustration and anger. He spoke of inherent bias woven into the fabric of society, highlighting the subtle and overt ways in which black lives were marginalized. He also offered hope, suggesting that transformation was within grasp, contingent upon collective solidarity. Back inside, Harrison was clearly losing ground. The evidence mounted, the witnesses delivered compelling narratives. O'Malley detected the jurors' wavering gazes, the increasing certainty of his culpability. He was morphing into a symbol, a scapegoat for the Chicago Police Department's collective transgressions. He'd always considered himself one of the good cops. Now, the world perceived him through a different, damning lens. This hearing had morphed beyond a simple assault case. It had become a referendum on something far greater, something beyond his control. It was a trial conducted by the media, a judgment rendered by public sentiment, and he was on the verge of collapse. The verdict: guilty. The word, sharp and brutal, sliced through the air like shattering glass. O'Malley betrayed no outward sign, only a subtle clenching of his jaw. Convicted of assault. Convicted of malfeasance. These pronouncements echoed, reverberating around the hallowed chamber, clinging to him like the stench of failure. He fixed his gaze on the unyielding back of Judge Thompson, an effigy of justice carved in stone. The courtroom exploded around him. A stifled cry from his wife. A choked sob from the gallery. The press, a ravenous swarm, descended upon the stenographer, a blitz of camera flashes momentarily searing his vision. He was a sacrifice. A ritual offering to sate the baying crowd. He felt the collective loathing, the palpable heat of their judgment. It had all spiraled out of control, a whirlwind of events. A mere 4 minutes. 240 seconds that had obliterated his existence. Outside, the city simmered with unrest. News trucks choked the streets, their satellite dishes reflecting the harsh sunlight. Protesters roared, their voices hoarse with fury, demanding retribution. O'Malley's name, once synonymous with power, was now a curse word, spat with venomous contempt. The televised verdict had poured gasoline on the flames. The grainy cell phone video, the judge's bruised visage, had become a symbol of deep-seated corruption. Superintendent Miller addressed the press, his face a carefully crafted facade of regret. A consummate politician, O'Malley thought, watching him on the grainy screen in his holding cell. Miller's words dripped with remorse. He spoke of responsibility, of restoring faith, of purging the tainted elements. He announced his immediate resignation, citing the best interests of the force, the welfare of the city. A wave of murmurs swept through the assembled journalists. "This does not constitute an admission of personal culpability," Miller asserted smoothly, his voice projecting practiced command. "However, as the leader of this department, I must accept accountability for cultivating an environment that allowed this incident to transpire." He paused for effect. "I trust that this judgment signifies not an end, but an inception. A genesis of reconciliation, of comprehension, and of genuine progress." O'Malley spat on the floor, the sound echoing in the confined space. The man was a worm, wriggling away from the devastation he helped orchestrate. Miller knew exactly what he was doing. Trading O'Malley and himself, as a temporary appeasement, to safeguard the power structure that had supported him for so long. He would survive this, O'Malley knew with certainty. A lucrative consultancy, a ghost-written memoir. He always did. As the steel door slammed shut, O'Malley was engulfed by a crushing silence, the burden of the conviction, and the stark realization of his disposability. The empire, as some called it, wasn't collapsing. It was simply redistributing its weight, adjusting to the pressure. And he, Kevin O'Malley, was the discarded ballast. A foundation for justice. The ballroom hummed, a low thrum of anticipation replacing the usual clinking of champagne flutes. Instead of crystal chandeliers, the light bounced off banners declaring, "A foundation for justice." Anna Washington, standing tall at the podium, felt the weight of 1,000 eyes, but her voice remained steady. "We stand here today," she began, her gaze sweeping across the crowd, a mix of lawyers, activists, and everyday Chicagoans. "Not in celebration, but in commitment. O'Malley's actions were a symptom, a festering sore on the body of our city. We cannot simply cauterize the wound. We must heal the underlying disease." She paused, letting her words resonate. "This foundation will be dedicated to 2 crucial pillars: police accountability and community empowerment. We will provide legal resources for those wrongly accused, training programs for officers focused on de-escalation and bias awareness, and grants for community initiatives aimed at uplifting our most vulnerable neighborhoods." A ripple of applause, hesitant at first, grew into a thunderous ovation. Anna acknowledged it with a nod, her face etched with determination. Weeks later, the air crackled with energy at the Foundation's first community outreach event. Reverend Elijah Davis, his voice booming with righteous fire, addressed the crowd gathered in a South Side park. Children played tag among the tables laden with information pamphlets, while volunteers helped residents register for free legal clinics. "Brothers and sisters," he roared, his words electrifying the atmosphere. "For too long, we have been silenced, ignored, trampled underfoot. But Judge Washington has shown us that even one voice, one act of defiance, can spark a revolution. This foundation is our revolution. A chance to build a better Chicago, brick by brick, block by block." Anna watched from the periphery, a small smile playing on her lips. Reverend Davis possessed a gift for igniting hope, before channeling the collective frustration into something tangible. She had chosen him carefully, knowing his passion was a vital ingredient. Later that evening, the city lights twinkling outside her study window, Anna sat alone, the scent of jasmine tea filling the air. She reread the Foundation's mission statement, the words blurring slightly with fatigue. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind, endless meetings, fundraising galas, navigating the inevitable political minefields. She thought of O'Malley, stripped of his power, his reputation in tatters. But that wasn't the victory she sought. True victory lay in creating a system where such abuses of power became relics of a bygone era. A system where justice wasn't a privilege, but a right. Picking up a framed photograph of her late husband, a gentle smile softened her features. He had always believed in the power of one, the ability of a single individual to effect change. "We're just getting started, Michael," she whispered into the quiet room. "Just getting started." The weight on her shoulders hadn't disappeared, but it felt lighter, balanced by the nascent hope blooming in the heart of Chicago. The foundation was laid. Now the real work began.